This is not a question born of idle curiosity or ghost stories whispered in the dark. It is a question that pierces the veil between time and eternity. Because if the dead do see us, if those who have passed from this world are watching, then every step we take, every decision we make, every idle word we speak is not only witnessed by the Almighty, but also by those who have gone before us. Hebrews speaks of a great cloud of witnesses. That is not poetry. It's a call to sobriety. If your grandmother, who spent nights praying for your soul, could see what you scroll through in the shadows, would she weep? If the saints of old, those who bled for the truth, who sang in prison cells, who walked away from wealth for the sake of righteousness, if they see how we live, would they recognize us as their brothers and sisters? What if the martyrs watch and wonder, will they stand like we stood? What if every compromise we make is not just a secret within four walls, but a declaration broadcast to eternity? That comfort is worth more to us than Christ. Some of you live like there's no one watching. You live as though your life is your own, as though death is distant and heaven is theoretical. But I tell you, there is an eternal court watching. There are eyes not blinded by the dust of this world. And above all, there is one who sees all, before whom every secret is laid bare. And what will you say when you cross that line yourself? Because one day you will join them. One day, you too will be among the dead. And you won't care how many followers you had. You won't care about the clothes, the cars, or the likes. You'll only care whether your life was poured out for the one who is worthy. So live now as though heaven is watching, because it is. Walk like every step echoes into eternity. Speak like your words will be played back before the throne. Act like the veil is thinner than you think. Because, friend, the dead may very well see us. But far more importantly, the living God does. The reality of being watched by eternity, including the dead and God, is not a small or symbolic matter. It is a truth that, if understood rightly, should shake us to the core. We often live as if we are isolated, as if our actions occur in a vacuum. We convince ourselves that what we do in the dark stays in the dark, that our private moments belong only to us. But this is a lie. There is no such thing as a private moment when it comes to eternity. Every thought, every word, every motive is laid bare before the eyes of Him who sees all. Nothing is hidden, nothing is lost in the shadows. The God who created light also searches the deep, secret places of our hearts. He doesn't need to uncover what we hide. He already sees it fully. But beyond the omnipresence of God, Scripture introduces a startling reality in the book of Hebrews. Since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, the author is speaking of those who have gone before us. Men and women who lived by faith, who endured suffering, who chose obedience over comfort, who finished their race with their eyes fixed on the prize. These aren't spectators in a stadium watching for entertainment. No, their witness is moral and spiritual. They have borne testimony with their lives. And now their legacy stands as a constant reminder to us. They are watching, not to criticize, but to call us upward to say, we made it through by His grace, so can you. If these people are indeed witnesses, if the veil between life and death is thinner than we imagine, then the lives we live matter on a cosmic level. Think of it. The mother who wept and prayed for her wayward son might now be in glory. Can she see whether her prayers were answered? The old missionary who gave his life in some forgotten land, is he now watching the generation he prayed would rise up and take his place? The saints who lived and died for the truth, who endured torture rather than deny the Lord, who were sawn in two, stoned, burned, fed to beasts, do they observe how casually we treat the Word of God, how lightly we esteem the blood of the covenant? It's not just the righteous who may be watching. There is a spiritual realm far more alive and aware than our distracted world. The angels behold the actions of the children of God. They marvel at the wisdom of God revealed in the church. But also the forces of darkness tremble when a believer walks in holiness. They rage when someone repents and turns from sin. Heaven and hell alike are attentive to the choices we make. We are never acting alone, never hidden. never unnoticed. You see, if we lived with the awareness that eternity is watching, we would walk differently. We would speak with more caution, love with more urgency, serve with more sincerity. We wouldn't be so quick to chase applause from men if we believed the applause of heaven was waiting. We wouldn't compromise so easily if we believed the martyrs were watching. We wouldn't waste our lives scrolling, comparing, envying, chasing vapor if we believed we were being observed by the righteous ones who already know what truly matters. And above all, we wouldn't forget that the living God sees us, not occasionally, not generally, but specifically. He sees the hesitation in your obedience. He sees the pride in your good deeds. He sees the resentment you hide behind a smile. He sees it all, and he is not indifferent. He is not a passive observer. He is the judge of all the earth. His gaze is holy, not sentimental. His eyes are like a flame of fire piercing to the dividing of soul and spirit. He weighs our lives, not by our intentions, but by our obedience. The truth is, if we truly believe we were seen, if we walked in the conscious awareness that nothing escapes God's sight and that perhaps even the saints are bearing witness to our journey, then we would tremble with reverence. We would no longer treat this life like a rehearsal, but as the one chance we have to honor the one who gave us breath. The call to live a life worthy of those who have gone before us is not simply a poetic suggestion. It is a divine mandate grounded in the reality of legacy, sacrifice, and eternal truth. When we speak of the great cloud of witnesses, we are not talking about ghosts or distant memories, but men and women of flesh and blood who walked this earth in the fear of the Lord and laid down their lives, their reputations, their comforts, and their desires for a cause greater than themselves. They didn't live easy lives. They lived worthy lives. You see, there is a sacred weight to history. Every generation receives an inheritance from the ones before it, not just in knowledge or material resources, but an example. What they endured, what they resisted, how they loved, how they believed, these things are passed down to us not merely to admire, but to emulate. We are surrounded by men and women who lived with holy fire, Abel who offered a better sacrifice, Noah who stood alone when the whole world was against him, Abraham who walked away from everything familiar, Moses who chose to suffer with God's people rather than enjoy the pleasures of sin for a season. These are not fairy tales. These are the standards, obedience over convenience. They endured hardship rather than compromise. They believed promises they never fully saw come to pass. And now we, standing on the shoulders of their testimonies, are faced with a sobering question. Will we live lives that match theirs? Not in terms of accomplishments, but in terms of faithfulness. Will we walk with the same resolve, the same trust, the same willingness to be counted as fools for Christ? There is a kind of pressure in this calling, not the pressure of performance, but the pressure of responsibility. A torch has been handed to us. Will we carry it with the same conviction, or will we drop it in favor of what is easy, popular, or safe? We have more resources, more knowledge, more freedom than almost any believers in history. Yet we often have less courage, less hunger, less holiness. Why? Because we have forgotten what it means to live in light of those who came before. We treat their sacrifices as distant history rather than sacred trust. Imagine standing before a line of men and women who were burned at the stake for owning a Bible. Imagine facing those who died in jungles and deserts, whose children perished beside them in missionary fields, who never saw the fruit of their labor on this side of eternity. Imagine them looking at you and asking, "What did you do with the freedom we died for? What did you do with the truth we bled to preserve? What did you do with the gospel we refused to deny?" We live in a time when comfort is king, and the cross is often reduced to a decoration. We talk about Jesus, but do we follow him with the same abandonment as those who gave up everything, 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 gave up everything for him, 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 gave up everything for him. We sing of surrender, but do we actually surrender when it costs us reputation, relationships, or financial security? The early church didn't gain power through popularity, they gained power through purity. They didn't influence culture by becoming like it. They confronted it with a holiness that could not be ignored. This is the life we are called to, not a life of spiritual laziness or self-indulgent faith, but one that burns with the same fire that lit up the
the faith, lives of 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 the faithful, 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 before, lives of the faithful 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 before us.
It's not about legalism. It's not about earning God's love. It's about honoring the blood that was spilled, the prayers that were prayed, the chains that were worn by those who refused to bow to anything but Christ. If we truly respect them, we will live lives that reflect And this is not about past heroes alone. It's about those in your own family, your own community who fought the good fight and kept the faith. Maybe it was a praying mother, a godly grandfather, a Sunday school teacher who poured truth into your soul. They may not be famous, but they lived faithfully, and their legacy is not finished until your life bears fruit from their labor. To live a life worthy of those who have gone before is to take seriously the baton we've been handed. It is to recognize that we are part of a story far bigger than ourselves. It is to remember that one day we will become the previous generation. What will we pass down? Will it be compromise or conviction? Will it be convenience or courage? Will the next generation look to us and say, they walked faithfully, they stood strong, they lived a life worthy? The contrast between temporal comfort and eternal conviction is one of the sharpest dividing lines in the Christian life. It is a line that runs straight through the human heart and separates those who live for what is seen from those who live for what is unseen. The pursuit of comfort is one of the most subtle and dangerous idols in the modern age. It disguises itself as wisdom, balance, and even self-care, but when left unchecked, it slowly erodes the backbone of faith, causing men and women to trade the eternal for the immediate. We live in a world that teaches us to crave convenience and ease. Everything around us, our technology, our entertainment, our culture, conditions us to expect life to be smooth, predictable, and pain-free. Struggle is seen as failure and suffering is viewed as unnecessary. But the call of Christ has never promised comfort in this world. In fact, it has promised the opposite, If anyone would come after me, let him deny himself, take up his cross daily and follow me. That is not the language of ease. It is the language of death, of surrender, of sacrifice. Comfort asks, what feels good now? Conviction asks, what is right in eternity? These two questions are rarely answered the same way. Temporal comfort tells you to avoid hard conversations, to compromise a little here. Stay silent there, blend in when it's inconvenient to stand out. Eternal conviction tells you to speak the truth, to endure rejection, to suffer loss, because you know that heaven is watching and the reward is not in this life. Comfort tells you to save your life. Conviction tells you to lose it for Christ's sake. When you look at the lives of those who were used mightily by God, none of them lived lives of ease. Moses walked away from the palace. Daniel knelt to pray with lions waiting. Paul was beaten, stoned, imprisoned, and eventually executed. Jesus himself had no place to lay his head. If these are our examples, why do we believe that faithfulness to God should come without a price? Why do we recoil when following Christ costs us something? We have allowed comfort to become the measuring stick of God's favor, but that is not the gospel. The cross is not comfortable. Obedience is not always safe. Holiness is not always applauded. Sometimes it isolates you. Sometimes it breaks you, but that's where conviction shines brightest. That's where faith becomes real. Not when it makes sense, not when it feels good, but when you choose God over everything else this world offers. The danger of comfort is that it dulls your senses. It makes you forget that this world is not your home. It whispers you can have Christ and popularity. You can serve God and serve yourself. You can walk the narrow path and keep your options open. But you can't. The cross demands everything. You don't get to hold on to your preferences, your ambitions, your comfort zone. You must lay it all down, and not just once, daily, repeatedly, joyfully. Among the greatest compromises in history have come not through direct rebellion, but through the slow erosion caused by a little compromise in doctrine to avoid conflict, a little silence in the face of sin to avoid offense, a little indulgence in secret to relieve stress, and before long conviction is gone, the fire fades, the conscience dull, and what's left is a form of godliness with no power, no cost, and no fruit. But those who live by eternal conviction see beyond the moment. They see Christ standing at the end of the race. They feel the weight of eternity in every decision. They don't care if the world applauds or mocks. Their reward is not in the bank, on a stage, or in the praise of men. It is in hearing a well done, good and faithful servant. That's what keeps them going when it hurts. That's what helps them stand when others bow. That's what gives them strength to walk away from everything the world offers, because they know it's all fading anyway. You were not called to blend in. You were not saved to be comfortable. You were redeemed to be set apart, to shine, to endure, and to proclaim the truth with your life, even when it costs you everything. Comfort may fill your hands for a moment, but conviction fills your soul forever. Choose the narrow way. Choose the hard obedience. Choose the eternal reward. The certainty of death and personal accountability before God is one of the most sobering truths in all of Scripture. No matter how much the world tries to distract itself with entertainment, wealth, ambition, or pleasure, death is the one appointment no man can cancel. It doesn't care how healthy you eat, how strong your body is, how much money you have, or how well connected you are. Death comes for kings and beggars alike. It is the great equalizer, the final door every human must walk through, and once that door closes behind you, there is no turning back. You may postpone many things in life, decisions, conversations, responsibilities, but you cannot postpone your own mortality. Hebrews 9:27 makes it plain. It is appointed unto man once to die, and after this the judgment. That means there are only two certainties in that verse. You will die and you will be judged, not by society, not by your friends, not even by your own opinion. You will stand before a holy God who sees everything with perfect clarity, and you will give an account for the life you lived. Think of that for a moment. Every careless word, every hidden thought, every motive behind every deed. God does not judge as man does. He doesn't look at appearances. He weighs the heart. You might fool everyone around you. You might wear a smile in public and carry secrets in private. You might say the right things, do the right things, and be applauded for your outward life, but none of that will matter on that day. The judgment seat of Christ is not a courtroom where your popularity will defend you. It's a place of truth, pure, holy, inescapable truth. People try to comfort themselves with false hope. I'm a good person. At least I'm not as bad as others. A God knows my heart. Yes, He does. That's the problem. He knows your heart better than you do. He knows the pride you justify, the lust you tolerate, the bitterness you nurture, the idols you refuse to tear down. On that day, your excuses will die in the presence of His holiness, and no one will be able to plead ignorance. Creation has declared His glory. Your conscience has whispered His law. And the gospel has been proclaimed. You will not be able to say, I didn't know. You knew, you just didn't care. So the question is not if you will die, is how you will stand when you do. Will you stand covered in the righteousness of Christ, or will you stand clothed in your own works, hoping they're enough? There will be no hiding in a crowd. This is not a general judgment. It is personal. Your name, your life, your deeds, your soul. The books will be opened and everything will be exposed. The only covering that will matter is the blood of the Lamb. Without it, no one will stand. This truth should not terrify those who belong to Christ, but it should awaken them. You are not here to build your kingdom. You are here to serve His. You are not promised tomorrow. You are given today, and today matters. Every breath you take is borrowed. Every moment is a gift meant to be spent for His glory. One day, your heart will beat for the last time, and you will enter eternity either as a child welcomed home or as a rebel facing judgment. There is a kind of holy urgency that comes when you truly believe this. You stop wasting time. You stop playing games with sin. You stop living for people's approval. You stop chasing things that don't last. You live with purpose. You forgive quickly. You speak truth boldly. You repent deeply. Because you know the clock is ticking and every second brings you closer to the throne. And let it be said, no one is too far gone while breath remains. The thief on the cross found mercy in his final hour. But do not play with that truth as if you can delay your surrender. You don't know when your final hour will come. The young die as often as the old. Cemeteries are full of people who thought they had more time. So examine your heart. Are you ready? Have you surrendered? Are you living like someone who will soon stand face to face with the one who gave you life? Not to earn His love, but to honor it. Not to fear punishment, but to walk in the fear of the Lord. Because when the moment comes, and it will, you won't care how much you made, what you wore, who praised you, or what you achieved. You will care about one thing. Did I live for the one who died for me?